When you retire, you may get a chance to go to football heaven. This is football heaven.
Hey guys, welcome to the Mission Podcast. I'm your host, Jameer Howerton, and I am super pumped to be joined by our special guest today from the class of 2020 Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Steve Hutchinson is joining us right here on the Mission. Steve, welcome to the show, sir.
Jameer, good to see you. Thank you.
It is great to see you, Steve, and I got to give you your flowers because over the course of your 12 Hall of Fame seasons at left guard, you earned 7 Pro Bowl appearances, played in 169 games, and was named to the NFL All-Decade Team in the 2000s. And you played for 3 different franchises, the Seattle Seahawks, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Tennessee Titans. Steve, I got to ask you, man, when you see 2001, first round, 17th player selected overall, those numbers must mean something near and dear to your heart.
Yeah. I mean, that was, it's funny. That's a day I'll never forget. It's still pretty vivid in my mind going on 21, I guess, years ago, sitting at my parents' house, even back then, before you had all the, the social media and all these, all these blogs and pre-draft stuff you have these days. Back then there was still, I guess, experts that were picking who's going where. And so you kind of fall into the trap of listening to them and you're like, all right, am I going here at 10? Am I going here to 13? Am I going here to, and then those picks come and go. And then, I get the phone call and honestly, I'm sitting there and I knew Detroit was sitting there at 18th and the phone rings and I would have bet anything it was Detroit calling. It was Seattle, which was funny because I didn't really spend any time at all in the pre-draft process talking to Seattle. I didn't spend any time with them. Didn't go in for a visit, didn't have a top 30 visit, didn't have anything like that. So when they called, I was pretty shocked actually. And, but the rest is history.
As a rookie, you started all 16 games, as I mentioned, at the left guard, clearing the path for who we believe to be one of the best running backs in Sean Alexander, who rushed for 1,300 plus yards that season with 14 touchdowns. Your hard work earned you all rookie honors. Is it safe to say when you got picked in the first round that you had to come in that locker room fired up, ready to go because you were going to be an important piece to that puzzle?
Yeah, I mean, I was fired up just to be drafted, obviously in the first round. But I remember after I got drafted, I flew to Seattle for the press conference, and Coach Holmgren at the time was also the GM. And so he took me in his office and kind of showed me the depth chart and said, I'm putting you here now, but I'm just not giving you this spot. You're going to have to earn it like everybody else. And I said, well, I wouldn't really want it any other way. And the great thing about that team and that offensive line in particular was, we were a pretty veteran group. Walter Jones, still a younger player in the league, but was already making a pretty solid name for himself, having been in the league, I want to say probably 3 years at that point, maybe 4, if I'm doing my math right. And then, I was obviously rookie at left guard. Rob Tobeck, who was my presenter for my Hall of Fame induction. He was, going on 10 years in the league at center, right guard, same Chris Gray. And then at the time, Chris McIntosh, who ironically now is back at his alma mater at Wisconsin as the AD. He was the draft pick in the year. He was one of their first round picks the year prior to me in 2000 out of Wisconsin, right tackle. So we were a pretty veteran group, pretty talented group. It was more or less, for me, I didn't want to be the weak link. I didn't want to be the guy that let this group down. So we kind of became a pretty tight knit group right off the bat, and we were pretty special.
All right, Steve, it's week 10 in the NFL. Week 9 brought us some interesting storylines, and I would love to get your take on your 3 teams, the Seattle Seahawks, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Tennessee Titans. And also, too, I want to put you on the hot seat because we got some fun fact questions for you. But first, your current role as the personnel consultant for the Seattle Seahawks. Tell us all about this before we dive in and talk shop. What's new? What do you have going on?
Right. So yeah, just like it says, I handle a lot of the scouting, interview process, pre-draft process for the college offensive linemen around the country. I work really close with all our area scouts, but I don't have an area, so I just focus on the offensive linemen in any particular region. So I work from home here in Nashville. I travel to Seattle uh, quite a bit, not as much as kind of after COVID, there's not a lot of there's more of this kind of meetings, right? Zoom.
Right.
So it's not as much traveling as in the past, but I get out on the road a little bit. Matter of fact, I was just on the road last week scouting some guys. And as the season comes to a close and the All-Star games start cranking up, that travel will pick up more, and all the pre-draft meetings, combine, pro days, things like that nature. So it'll be ramping up. But so yeah, like I said, I handle a lot of the offensive line scouting for the Seahawks.
Now, I got to ask you, man, because I got to state the obvious. You're all decked out in your Michigan football gear, and congratulations to your Wolverines, 6-0. They're sitting right up top. I think underneath them is that team from down south that we don't
we don't talk about.
We don't have to mention, but I got to say, Steve, November 26th is going to shape up for a nice rivalry.
Yeah, it should be good. We've got a couple games to take care of. I think we host Nebraska this week, and then we travel to Illinois, that's having a good season as well. So if we can take care of business, and I'm sure Ohio State will the next few weeks as well, we go down to Columbus, which should be setting up for a fairly good way to end the Thanksgiving weekend.
Along the lines of a college standout player, I once again, I got to give you your flowers, man. You were a unanimous first team All-American who led the Wolverines to 4 bowl wins, including the 1997 national championship at the Rose Bowl. You were also one of only 7 players in Big Ten history to be named a 4-time first team All Big Ten selection, which means is, once again, the College Football Hall of Fame is knocking again on your door. So we'll find out if our guy this year, December 5th, 2023, if you will be selected into the College Hall of Fame. How excited would that be for you if you're selected?
Yeah, that would be great. Pro Football Hall of Fame was obviously a huge dream of mine, and the ability to go in and get inducted with all those guys that I grew up watching and playing against and playing with that are already in. It was special, and I can't, it'd take me all day to describe that. But college, that's a great honor too. The amount of, we always talk about the elite and how many people, have the privilege to play in the NFL. Well, that number is just multiplied exponentially when you talk about the pool of college players that have ever played the game. So to be in the mention of those guys and for that honor is pretty unique in itself.
All right, now it's the Hall of Famer Look Back and Look Ahead segment, brought to you by the Pro Football Hall of Fame Museum. Visit profootballhof.com to book your trip today to Canton, Ohio. All right, Steve, let's jump into it. Your Seattle Seahawks is sitting at the top of the NFC West at 6-3. They had a huge divisional win, 31-21 against the Arizona Cardinals. However, they face a struggling Tampa Bay team. They're going across the pond to face Tom Brady and the boys. But we did see in the closing seconds, Tom Brady got his swag back. It was vintage Tom Brady. But how do you feel about this matchup coming Sunday morning?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always hard. There's always an extra wrinkle when you play on the road, but then this is unique, right? It's on the road. Not only is it on the road for both teams, it's, like you said, across the pond in a stadium, an environment that, to my knowledge, hasn't really hosted an NFL game. I know the World League back many moons ago there was a team or two in Germany, but for them to see an actual regular season NFL game, I imagine that environment will be pretty crazy. There's a lot that goes into it. You try to keep everything as normal as possible. But again, it isn't for where you're going to be playing in the different stadium and somewhere that nobody's ever played before. I've got to give credit to my Seahawks. I don't think there's a lot of people out there that gave us a ton of preseason votes to be, if they had to guess where we would be sitting at this part in the season, to be 6-3, leading the NFC West over the Super Bowl champion Rams. I think it shows the growth, the character of this team. They're just kind of getting the confidence. We had a really good draft last year. We've got a number of those guys contributing in major roles and major factors so far this year. So just keep grinding. I think they're feeling it. They're getting the confidence. You can never rule out my old college teammate Tom Brady. Father Time doesn't seem to kind of affect him very much. So it should be a pretty good game.
How impressed have you been with Seattle's signal caller, Geno Smith? I'm paraphrasing. He said, they tried to write me off, but I didn't sign the letter. I mean, he has been balling.
Yeah, hats off to Geno. He's kind of bounced around, with a couple teams. Never really had the opportunity. Last year, when Russell was out for a couple weeks with an injury, he stepped in and had some up and down. And obviously going into this season with the trade, Drew Lock was brought in, and I think they had a pretty good battle during camp. There's not too many guys that take an opportunity for a second or third chance and make the most of it and drill it down the middle, and he has done that. He's taken this team on their shoulders. He's the leader of the team. He's the guy that everybody looks up to, and I think as he goes, the team will go.
Your Minnesota Vikings are sitting 7-1, top of the NFC North Division. They beat the Washington Commanders last week, 2017, but they face a tough Buffalo Bills team who lost to their divisional foe last week, the New York Jets, who are bugging me out because I'm a huge Jet fan. But also, too, there's a lot of concerns surrounding quarterback Josh Allen's throwing arm, his elbow. Your thoughts on the Vikings-Bills game this week?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Kevin's done a great job since he took over as head coach this year, and I think for whatever reason, the team has just kind of bought into his message right away. Having talking to some of the staff and friends of mine that are still in the building there at Minnesota, he's done a great job of getting those guys to see the picture and the future he's had for that ball club, and they've bought in, like I said. So they're on a roll now, and when you get in a groove like that, it's hard to stop. On the flip side, Buffalo, probably one of the most talented teams in the league. I think there wasn't too many people that didn't have them playing for the Super Bowl, and they are very much still in that, if not probably the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to those bets on that. But like you said, they're going to be dangerous. What's the old saying? It's a wounded animal is the worst kind of the foe to face, or something of that nature, because you got the quarterback banged up a little bit. I don't see that affecting him very much. That's a tough guy. I think he prides himself on being tough, takes the role of that city, and they're going to be dangerous because they're going to look back at this film from the Jets game and go, "There's no way we should have lost that game," and they're going to want to come out and get that taste out of their mouth. So that should be a pretty good game.
And lastly, your Tennessee Titans, they're sitting at the top of the AFC South at 5-3. And even though they lost last week to the Kansas City Chiefs, they put up a heck of a fight in overtime 2017. But they're facing a struggling Denver Broncos that are coming off a bye. Your thoughts of this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee is definitely taking on the persona of their head coach. I've known Mike Vrabel a long time, played against him, in college and in the pros numerous times, and we were both union reps and while we were playing, so I've known him a long time, and he's as blue collar, tough nosed, type guy as there is. And this team, again, you talk about Vikings buying into their head coach, that Tennessee's done the same thing. I don't think there was very many people giving them a chance to go into Arrowhead last week and win that game, especially with the Tannehill being out. A rookie quarterback going in that environment that hasn't had a lot of snaps so far. But they find a way to do what they do best, run the ball with Derrick Henry, play good defense. And anytime you can do that, you've got a chance. I know this league has kind of turned it into a through the air league with a lot of numbers going through the air, but football's not going to change. When you get to this time of year, the weather starts getting bad, the fields start getting a little crummy. If you can run the ball efficiently and control the clock and you can play good defense, you've got a shot. So I'll never count them out. Denver had a week to rest up, like you said. That quarterback's got something to prove, having started the first half of the season, probably not what anybody expected, at least himself. And so they're going to come out of the gates, swinging hard. And Tennessee's, although they are banged up, they're going to continue to do what they do each way.
Do you think the young rookie will get another nod at being under center going against the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't really paid too much attention to it sounds like Tannehill's got an ankle issue. Mm-hmm. Those can be tricky, whether it's a regular sprain or what they call the high ankle. I think, whoever gets the nod, they're going to have a game plan set up for that quarterback to be successful. And if it's Tannehill, you'll probably see more of what you saw earlier in the year, which is, run the ball, steady dose. They're built on run the ball and then set up that play action, a couple deep shots a game. With the young kid in there, I think you would see probably steady dose of run, safe passes, just moving the chains. Again, not turning the ball over, not any silly mistakes, and again, relying on that defense.
Pretty impressive young man. I mean, I saw flashes of Lamar Jackson there for a hot second where he was able to extend the plays with his legs. Well, that was the Hall of Famer Look Back and Look Ahead, brought to you by the Pro Football Hall of Fame Museum. Once again, visit profootballhof.com to book your trip to Canton today. Okay, Steve, as you know, the 120 modern era nominees have been announced for this year's 2023 class, and there are 21 offensive linemen that are on that list. We can't name them all. As you also know, this list will be cut down to 25 semifinalists this November, and then there'll be another cut down to 15 finalists that will be revealed early January. But looking at that list of 21 guys, who are some of those offensive linemen that jump out to you that you feel like really changed the game and revolutionized the game at that offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, there's a you look at this list, it's an impressive list. They're all obviously all great players. The one name that stands out for me, obviously Joe Thomas, to have the career he had, and to gain the recognition and the respect he got spending his whole career in Cleveland, where obviously they haven't had any sort of national recognition from media or had much success at all over the course of his career. For him to continue to be up there as one of the top tackles throughout his career, I think that speaks volumes. Like I said, this list is great, and a lot of these guys I either played with, played against. Just looking at it, Willie Anderson, great tackle. I just spent time in Dallas this summer with Willie Anderson, Mark Schlereth, and Olin Kreutz. We were at an O-line symposium down in Frisco, Texas. Had a chance to talk some shop O-line stuff, so it was good spending time with them. Matt Burke I played with for a few years, his last few years in Minnesota before he went over to the Ravens and won a Super Bowl. Not going to find a sharper guy at the center position than Matt Burke. Lomas Brown did it a long time. Reuben Brown played a long time as well. Chicago and in Buffalo, spent a Pro Bowl with him. Let's see here. Logan Mankins, mainstay on the Patriots line for a number of those Super Bowls. Tom Nalen, that's a guy that, the thing that impressed me about Denver's offensive line 20 years ago, 25 years ago, was they were going to the Super Bowl. They had of course they had Elway and TD back there running the ball, but their line, if you look at the average size of their line compared to like the Cowboys line or most lines in the league, those guys were way undersized. And the amount of success they had running the ball, and the amount of offensive production they had with guys like Tom and some of these guys, that were well undersized from the guys they were playing against. It's just, that's a lot of respect there for that. Nate Newton, Eric Williams, mainstays on those Dallas lines where Emmett was running like crazy and Troy was throwing the ball, all those Super Bowls. Those guys are, just kind of legendary. You can't really turn on any, early 90s Cowboys film without seeing those guys lighting some people up. Jeff Saturday, his name's been in the news a lot the last couple of days. Jeff and I, again, another guy I've known for a long time, union rep as well, Pro Bowls, number of them together. It doesn't surprise me at all that, Jeff would be named an interim coach. Now it's highly unlikely, most people think, but you've got a guy who's stayed with his ear to the track, so to speak, in that organization. He's a well-respected voice in that organization. He'll go in there and do what essentially that job title is, right? That's to get them through the season and have hope to build for the future. Now, the chances of him being named, head coach from there on out, having no college or head coaching experience in the pros as well, that's yet to be seen. But I think, if I'm Jim Irsay and I'm just looking for a guy I trust that I've known for a long time to just kind of get us through the next 7 games, I don't see anybody better than Jeff to do that, because his pride, as far as that organization is concerned, he's going to try to do things the right way there for the next 2 months. I've mentioned Mark Schlereth. Chris Snee, here's a guy that I always respected his career. He was on, when I was playing in Seattle, we always thought, between us and the Giants offensive line, we had one of the better offensive lines in the early 2000s in the league. And so, Chris was a member of that Giants lines that won a couple Super Bowls there. So a good player there. I mentioned Joe. Brian Waters, again, another guard, played a long time in Kansas City. Richmond Webb, a guy that, blast from the past. I grew up in South Florida, watching the Dolphins every Saturday or every Sunday. Richmond was he was the anchor. He was the left tackle from Marino all those years, and then Wisniewski with the Raiders. So it's a good list. It's an admirable list. A bunch of guys there that played good football for a long time.
Steve, before I put you on the hot seat, man, if you could just, you mentioned a list of these magnificent 21 offensive linemen, and there's probably more that deserve to be on this list. But if you could just really dive in, as you mentioned, Jeff Saturday, the pride in knowing that organization, but the pride as I'm paraphrasing what you said about in your Hall of Fame speech, the quote of the offensive linemen don't get the accolades, so forth and so on. But when you think of the offensive linemen, and I worked for the Browns, and I remember when Joe Thomas was there as a rookie and was there for most of his career, he always used to say, it starts up front. It starts with us. But if you could really speak to that mentality, how it does start up front, it's all about the men that are in the trenches defending and being able to score.
Right. I mean, like I said earlier, football is not going to change. I mean, I love watching football. I'm a fan as well as a former player, but you love to see the Tyreek Hills get down the field and catch those long passes and make all those moves after the catch. And that's the exciting part about football. But at the core of football, you've got to be able to block and you got to be able to tackle. And, running the ball isn't, like I said earlier, isn't as mainstay or as prevalent. You don't see, I think there's 1 or 2 teams in the league anymore that even carry a true fullback on their roster, whereas 15 years ago, everybody had it, right? Everybody was getting an I formation at some point, for the first two downs of the series and running, downhill. So the game has become more spread, but you still have to control the clock. If you're out there just throwing the ball every play, and you're going 3 and out because the timing's off, or you don't make the play to move the chains. You're putting your defense back out there with no rest, and it's a cumulative effect. So no matter what style of football you're watching, you still have to be able to win up front, and That's get the yards on the ground when you need to. And especially now in the game with all the passes, I think it was Sunday night, Mahomes threw 68 times or something like that. So you got to be able to pass protect, and he's not getting that ball off if there's guys knocking him on the ground every play. So it does start up front, both sides of the ball.
All right, Steve, time to put you on the hot seat. This is the Hall of Fame Hot Seat, brought to you by the Hall of Fame merchandise store. Shop for all 32 teams and your Hall of Fame swag at profootballhof.com when you use the code MISSION. That's MISSION. MISSION. You will receive 25% off. All right, Steve, in today's game, which running back would you want to block for?
Oh, Derrick Henry. No, that's not even close. Derrick Henry, I've had the opportunity I was privileged to play with, like you said, Sean Alexander, Adrian Peterson. I had my year in Tennessee, Chris Johnson. I kind of got spoiled with good backs. And, when you got a guy like Derrick, he just needs a crease. So as an offensive lineman blocking for a guy like that, if you could just get that guy moved that extra inch, there's a chance he could take it to the house any chance he gets. But there's some good young backs in the league too. The kid from the Jets that went down, Breece Hall, was having a good year. The kid we drafted in Seattle out of Michigan State this year, Kenneth Walker, he's starting to come into his own, having number of yards since he took over. So there's some good ones out there, but Derrick he'd be the one I'd want to block for.
Toughest road game environment played?
Yeah, Arrowhead's always a tough one. That's a loud one, but I've got to say, I think that in 2009, that NFC Championship game down in New Orleans, Vikings Saints game, that was about as loud as it gets. That was crazy. When that dome is rocking, it's nuts.
G4 or Cessna?
G4. Sometimes you don't have all day to get there.
You see, a lot of people don't know about that. That was a loaded question. I learned from my man, Hey Dude, that I didn't realize that you're a pilot.
Yeah. I've been flying for a couple years now, and you'll spend a lot more money on fuel with the G4, but you'll get there a lot quicker.
Best fast food French fries?
Ooh, McDonald's is the easy one, and they're good, but I gotta say the Arby's curly fries are kind of my favorite. I'm an Arby's curly fry guy.
Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune?
Jeopardy.
And lastly, if you could be a superhero, who would you be and why?
That's tough. Superhero, who would I be and why? You'd want to say somebody like Superman, but the thing about Superman is I think he doesn't really ever know what it feels like to be human, right? I mean, the guy can't take off. He's always got the X-ray vision. He's always Man of Steel, right? At least a guy like Batman, he can take it off and be Bruce Wayne, and he can kind of mix and mingle with the regular folks. So I guess I'm thinking I'm more of a Batman guy, I guess.
Batman, Gotham City. I like that. Well, there it is. That's Steve Hutchinson's Hall of Fame hot seat. Steve, once again, man, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to help break down some primetime matchups and just to have a little fun talking football, man.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Anytime.
Steve Hutchinson, right here on The Mission.